Hey guys, welcome back. This is my sort of extended review after living with it for another week or so. Just going to go over a few things I've done and things you can just sort of do to improve the overall assembly of it, to be fair. As much as I didn't feel like it needed this because the prints that were coming out of it were pretty much bang on anyway, so I haven't got an issue with printing, but I just want to know that everything was running true to just eliminate any issues that could occur from such sort of bad angles on everything. So anyway, I'll start with so the biggest thing I've done is probably with the bed. I previously said I wasn't particularly happy with the sort of offset wheel arrangement. I was getting a sort of bed that was running at quite an angle, and the quickest thing I did to eliminate that rather than faff around was just remove one of the wheels from the right hand side. So that left a sort of triangular pattern, and that gave me a nice smooth sort of flat surface. I think after that though I did realise I perhaps introduced a bit of movement sort of across it. So I sort of sat around for a bit and just got all 4 wheels back on and working properly. But since then I've actually bought some the V Extreme wheels. So they were a clear wheel and they're a harder plastic material. I've got sort of 3 choices. You've got the sort of the softest ones, which are the black ones. I mean, they're not soft by any stretch, but they are softer. These, which are a harder plastic, and then you've got sort of stainless steel ones. I wouldn't recommend using the stainless steel ones because obviously the wheels are then harder than the extruded aluminium, and as such, that's going to become the wear part, not the wheels, which you don't want because you don't want to be replacing bits of extruded aluminium when you can just replace wheels, which is easier and probably cheaper. So yeah, so that's what I've done, and that sort of stiffened it up. On top of that, I did when I originally sort of set it up, my springs were sort of a lot higher up, and that meant the bed was very soft, and on fighting to get anything off it, I was just moving it and unleveling it around. So to sort of combat that, I have sort of compressed them, and that's the sort of height it's sitting at now, and they are a lot stiffer. So overall the bed has improved. So yeah, I don't know if I mentioned I've re-drilled the wheels so they're now spaced equally apart. I think I've come to realise why they had offset them, and I think that was just because the bracket this side would have collided with the wheel, as this one will do now. If I try to print at the full print bed, I think it's gonna hit this this tensioner I've put on. So I need to just trim that off really, to just get the full bed. And the same with the limit switch on the back. That's now needs to move 18 millimeters further back to compensate for the wheel having moved 18 millimeters closer. What I've done as a temporary fix is I've just essentially undone the 2 bolts on the bottom, and they sort of bolt into a thread that's been placed through the extrusion, and I've just moved it back and just pinned it against the furthest hole and tilted it back a bit. So that gives me around about the same sort of complete range. The only issue is it's not properly secured, so when the bed hits it, kind of bumps it with a bit of force, and it does knock it back just about a millimeter every time. So great as a temporary fix, but I will look at sort of sussing that out and making a proper bracket that sort of just bolts into the aluminium and just offsets it back by 18 mil. So yeah, that's the biggest thing on the bed. So the bed's solid now, hell of a lot solid compared to what it was, and it's running true and straight, which is what I wanted. And it's one thing, you can sort of take a lot of this out on the bed, but I think it's just better just to get everything running nice and true. And to further that point, I have gone on to did some work on these vertical pieces. I've shimmed them with on this back edge, just 3 strips of post-it notes essentially. Now I have ordered some proper shimming material, and if required or I feel like it down the line, I'll strip it down and I'll replace this with proper shimming material. But the 3-layer thickness has taken more or less all that flex out, or not so much flex, but how it was running out. And the issue for that is this aluminium extrusion is a little bumpy on the top. It's not something you can feel, but if you get a straight edge and you run it or place it on, you can just see how it rocks back and forth. So I don't know if that's the complete and whole problem, or if the cut's slightly out as well. But like I say, that 3 layers have taken it out, no problem. And I've done that each side, and it's just on this back edge, and that's sort of pulled them in nicely to the point where I don't need to pull them in at the top to get this on or force this on or anything. So that's been one improvement. I have squared it up on this way, and it's completely level that way, not a problem. The other thing I did was I got the X-axis of the carriage completely, well, as close as completely level as I could. And I did that just by essentially taking this top off, taking the filament holder off, well, just moving the complete thing out of the way, unbolting the 2 bolts that hold this plate on with the wheels, take that off, and then remove the entire lot, back the nuts off just a bit so I could sort of force this up and down, and essentially put this back on without this, and then just put a set square on this and just squared it off against this. And yeah, if you leave the nut sort of just loose enough, not too loose that you can knock it while you're working with it, especially taking it off, because that's sort of pointless. But just just back them off just a bit, and then you can adjust it in situ, and hopefully take it off without knocking it, and then tighten them up fully, put it back on, just check it again, and then if it's bang on, then happy days. And the way you want to sort of reassemble the complete X-axis, what you've got to do is don't bolt this on first. What I did is just sort of held it to, like, in position, because you've got a button cap screw on the back of this, so it's a bit hard to put this on first, say, and then put this on after that, because you've got to force this over the button thing, the button cap screw. So it's best just hold them together, put it on, and once you've got it on, it'll just sort of stay there because the button screw's holding it there. And then what you can do is you can tighten that to it, and then hopefully this isn't sort of going to be causing any dragging, because obviously the the Z-axis is this side, and all the forces here. So the last thing you want is any sort of friction that could sort of cause dragging this side. I mean, that is testable with a dial gauge and a clamp. You want one on both sides, really, I think, to just make sure as you move it up and down, they're moving equally. But I'm sure they are, because, like I say, I'm pretty confident that it's all put together fairly well now. So that's that. So it's a pain in the arse thing to do. A bit of a bad design how the bolts for this are not come through from this side. That's ideally what you want. But yeah, I sort of made do, and it's all square now. Yes, and I think by far the most important thing, and same time the trickiest, is this Z-axis here. So when I got it, I'm sure, as most people, you just kind of want to get it together. You want to get it up and running, and you want to start printing. I mean, this was my first printer, so I'd got all that sort of new toy excitement, which is what I did. And I'm fairly sort of competent, and I know things need to be square and true and everything. So I did spend a bit of time making sure this Z-axis was, you could turn it sort of nicely by hand. However, I have spent a bit of time with it since then. Again, just with bits of paper, just sort of threaded into it here and there, just to kick it where I want it to kick. And the best way to do that is say why you're squaring this up, like I've just said, you take the top off and everything, and you get it off. You have to unplug all these as well. You want to take this brass part out that it actually sort of, the lead screw goes through, threads through. So you want to take that out, and you want to put this back on, just this side. You don't have to worry about what else is on. And you want to, this hole's obviously quite a bit bigger. So you want to start off with it down the bottom, and you want to make sure that this is coming through that hole without touching any sides, and obviously as central as possible. So you want to sort of work to get that, but at the same time you want to be lifting it up and making sure that it's still running more or less the same position, not touching any of the sides at the top. So if it is, obviously it's running, you know, in or out or whatever, then you sort of need to play with it down at the bottom. And I got mine more or less bang on. Now, how can you tell when it's bang on? Because it moves so freely. I mean, just to move it down, all I've got to do is put a little bit of pressure on and lift it up. I've got to take a bit of the weight now, but you can see no sticking points, no stiff points. It will just, it's a bit of a pain in the arse sometimes, because when you're sort of working around it, you can just knock it in it and it falls. But yeah, that's what you want to be aiming for. Now, if it is slightly out and it's a bit stiffer than that, I'm sure it'll work fine. But if you want to get everything sort of 100% sort of, or 99.9% as close to being properly true, then it's going to improve the wear, it's going to improve the longevity. You're not going to sort of be overloading motors. You know, everything sort of has a lifespan, and it's all about just sort of improving that. And obviously, if everything is correct, then you know that when you print something and you gain a bit of an artifact in it or something like that, or it's not quite printing as you want, you can be sure then that it's not, you know, the printer as such, like mechanically, and you can sort of just rule that out. Now, if everything's out and you're getting sort of dodgy prints and sort of poor layer adhesion and stuff like that, you sort of, is it software? Is it the sort of software in the printer? You know, is it my temperature? You can just sort of, you know, it's just one of the things you can easily rule out. I mean, for me, software side of things is a little bit more difficult, whereas getting this level is easy. Just takes a bit of time, especially that Z-axis. That's like, you feel like you're chasing your tail. You feel like you're getting the sort of the top level and then the bottom's out. And like I say, it's a pain in the arse, but I can clearly show you it's doable, because all I've done is used a bit of paper. I mean, I did print out this. My intention to put this on, but this just made it so much harder, to be honest. Like I say, I've got 4 fixings for the stepper, and there's obviously slots in them, so there's a bit of play. And there's obviously the 4 sort of fixing points, 2 to the vertical and 2 to the horizontal. So I thought that was going to be fantastic and make things easier, but it didn't. Because, you know, you kind of want to kick the stepper over that way, so you've got to undo this bolt and sort of drop it down that corner, but then there's no way of sort of getting anything under it to sort of space it off, and you can't leave it loose. So yeah, thought that was going to be a quick fix, but no, I'd say just stick with the original and just shim it with bits of post-it note or something similar. Yeah, I think that's it. Oh, I added a belt tensioner. This is one thing as well. I mean, the belt tensioners that come with it are, you know, they do the job, and I'm sure mine were working absolutely fine. I'm sure everybody else's are, but really you want to get the proper tension. You know, you don't want it over tightened and you don't want it too loose. So there's no real way of gauging that with the the original bracket, because you kind of have to just sort of pull it as tight as you sort of can, tighten the nuts up, test it, and then just, it's pot luck if you're going to get it sort of bang on. Obviously you don't want it too tight, because you're going to put excess stress on the motors, and that's going to sort of, again, it's going to run hotter and it'll shorten its lifespan. So one thing you want to look out for if your belts are too loose is you want to make sure you're not getting too much sort of lash. It's a bit hard to see on this. It's easier to see on the back, but I can't move around with the camera. So if you just, say for example, just sort of move something back and forth quickly, you want to make sure you're not getting sort of this belt sort of moving up and down as you're doing that. And you can, as you're doing that, sort of moving it back and forth, you can be sort of dialing the tensioner in and just get rid of that. And as soon as it's gone, happy days. You know, you're not over tightening it then, and it's not too slack. So yeah, that's that. I have printed one out for this as well. Again, it was for a CR10, so it wasn't particularly designed for this, and consequently the belt is technically too short to go through it. As you can see, it sort of runs fairly close to the extrusion, and when I put that on, it won't go close enough to it, to be fair. So I've scrapped that. But yeah, I do plan on either tweaking something or making something myself to do that, because I think that would be better. What else? I think that's it, to be honest. I think I've just basically been working on getting everything running true and properly. So I mean, I was running for quite a while, but this beam was out probably by a couple of mil up. And again, you're taking stuff out on the bed. But when everything's out, you sort of, it makes it more difficult to take it out just on the bed alone. So that's that. So I've been printing more stuff. I had my order of 3D Printz filament, and yeah, been testing that. So I've got this this lovely red. Oh, obviously it's not red, it's pink, but I assure you, when I ordered it, it said it was purple, pink, no, purple, red, and orange. However, the red is more of a pink, especially at room temperature. So this is actually colour changing. So I'll see. It's a £28 a roll list, but it's quite a novelty, and it does add. No, I'd turn the printer on, but this fan makes a right racket at the minute. But yeah, I'll probably make a separate video about this. But it prints beautifully. So yeah, so when this is coming out of the extruder, it comes out like a sort of clear orangey colour, and then as it cools into this pink. And if you put it in the fridge or something, or somewhere cold, it will go to like a dark purple. So it's pretty neat. I've actually printed out a nozzle, which is slightly better than the original one. It sort of directs it to a more appropriate place. And the beauty about that is that you can sort of see the colour changing, because it doesn't. The fan isn't on for the first layer or two. So this sort of gets a load of heat soak, changes to sort of like a pale orangey colour, and then when the blower comes on, you can sort of see that pink start bleeding out. So you can see that there is a cooling effect. It still obviously stays sort of orange around the nozzle tip, just from the heat soak. But yeah, it's just a novelty. But because it's so pink, there's sort of not a lot I can do with it. So I've been making the woman stuff again. I did buy her a sort of purple filament, but this one's a lot nicer, she says. She would say that, and it's 28 quid a roll. But this come out beautifully. Well, almost beautifully anyway. The back and the sides are nice, but I always get stringing on this in the centre, and I don't know why. I can see on the image where you can see the tool paths and everything. I can see it sort of. It makes a lot of lines through here, but I'm not quite sure why. I don't know why I can't just stay within the perimeter. So yeah, I made that. I don't know what I did wrong on these settings, but this took forever to print. This took like 23 hours to print, and I know it's sizable, but I mean this one took 9 hours, and all I did after is I just added this sort of back section on, just with these slots for nail files. So as you can see, I printed one of these out first. But lo and behold, 3 pots, I measured the smallest one. Now, I thought all pots were made equal, but apparently not. So of course, you know, this one fits in, but these ones are a lot tighter. Which isn't too bad, but I went and printed it. It's a little bit tight in these because I haven't fully cleaned the bloody stringing off it. But yeah, I mean, it's just done one layer thick, and you can see it's left quite a nice pattern on it. I quite really like that. Again, this is a colour changing filament. I weighed it, and it cost me about £5 to make this, which is a bit of a kick in the teeth. But I will admit, it does look nice. It's quite a nice colour, to be fair. I mean, pink aside, it's got this slight sort of transparency, and there's a slight uneven in it. It just makes it nice, to be honest. Printed some of these out. This is more or less my test piece now. So when I make any major changes or test a new filament, I tend to print 2 or 3 of these out in a row and just check for sort of consistency before I do something like the benchy, which takes about 3 hours, I think. Interesting thing is, on both my benches, the stack gets slightly thicker as it goes up, because I assume it's just because it's putting layer after layer on, and that sort of consequently means it sort of splays out as it goes up. So it'd be interesting to see if there's any difference with the slightly different nozzle, just to see if that cools it any better, and I can sort of measure these two, get an average, and see what comes. Well, I've actually got 3, so I can measure 3, get an average, and then do one with the new nozzle and see if that makes any difference. Not sure it will, but hey ho, always worth the check. So yeah, as you can see, just dropped one. As you can see with these, they both come out absolutely identical. So great consistency there, and here's a yellow one I printed weeks prior on the yellow PLA, and every artifact is the same. So I know that there's no issue like with the filament or the printer as such. Everything, all the little. I get sort of very predictable stringing on this, and I have no idea why. But every one I print is exactly the same. Which is great. I mean, it's consistent at least. But it's hard to. It does, if you hold it, or your hands are warm enough, it will actually start changing to a lighter colour. Sort of doing a poor job of showing you. Ideally, I'd have the heat bed on, and you can see it, but when I turn it on, like I say, there's fan kicks in, and it's dead noisy at the minute, so I have got a replacement on the way. Hopefully that'll shut that up. Here's another piece I've printed on the pink PLA. So this is the nose cone for the... I don't know why I printed it in pink, to be honest. I always like to be printing something, and I couldn't be asked to change the filament. That's the truth, honestly. Yeah, I printed this. This is a nose cone for the open RCF1 core, and it is absolutely beautiful. No issues with that. So there's no support on this or anything, and it's printed magnificent. It's still got the layer on the bottom for the brim. I did sort of make some effort to trim it off, but other than that, it is beautiful, as you can see. So that's that. I printed some other parts, to be honest. So I printed this top shell, and that come out reasonably well. So didn't have any support under there. Managed it. I did have some support on this top thing, which I've yet to trim off. My main issue for support, because I was leaving it overnight, is it prints there, at this angle, and I just wanted something under it just to stop it sort of tipping over as it got high up. So yeah, but yeah, it printed out fairly well. Printed out the front spoiler thing as well. This is a little bit more disappointing. Got some stringing on this, which was yet to sort of trim off, and again the brim at the bottom. But overall, as you can see, a very usable piece. I may try print it out again, just with some different settings. But yeah, I mean, beggars can't be choosers, I guess. Can't complain too much at that. Printed out my own little test cube, which is now a little SD card thing, just to calibrate it really. So the internal circumference was sorry about that, was 17mm by 20mm deep, and the external dimensions are 25 by 25 by 25, and measured it after with some calipers, and sure enough, more or less bob on. Anyway, yes, nice little cube. So yeah, what else? I think I've got much else. Oh, I did want to change this, and I wanted to print it out in again this sort of color changing filament. I printed this out, and it come with a nozzle already, like this part already sort of in the print, and it's got some little holes, but them holes are so fine that it's just not powerful to put anything reasonable through it. So I went about, I hot knifed it basically straight through, just to see if it would work with this fan bolted on after with another nozzle, blah blah blah. But it just, the whole thing doesn't fit, to be honest. So the nozzle sort of hits somewhere here, so you can't sort of put it on and get the levels right for the two screw holes. So the hot part of the nozzle is going to be touching inside, which is just a load of crap. Again, I just wanted something on there that, you know, because this is obviously an environment where the temperature's changing. I thought it'd be cool just to see how, you know, how that interacts. But again, it was a bit of a waste of time. So I printed this out. This is something I designed in Fusion. It was essentially just going to be a, what do you call it, like a vase shaped thing, and yeah, bad print by design really. I just wanted to see if it could do it, and for the most part it did. I mean, you can see sort of layer shifts, but I mean these are they're only 2 layers thick, so it's very, very flimsy. So I mean, as it's sort of doing these even thinner pieces and getting up to here, you can see it flexing as the nozzle goes over them. So that's why you get sort of layer shifts, layer shifts in the edges. So yeah, I mean, it did get further than this, but as it sort of, because what happened was it sort of comes up and then it flutes out, and it just couldn't handle the overhang of, essentially. And it did print it, it made it, but it was very, very weak. I've actually got the piece I broke off here. As you can see, messy on the outside and even messier on the inside, and it just makes it very weak, very easy to snap. So I just snapped it off. So essentially this is me just messing around in Fusion, and just trying to, because when you're making stuff to 3D print, you've kind of got to, you know, build that into it. It's printability. So I'm just sort of seeing what I can get away with and what I can't, and also just seeing what I can do in Fusion. This isn't anything terribly difficult, believe it or not. And Fusion 60 or Autodesk have their own sort of Fusion 360 tutorials, and there's a guy who designed like a lampshade or something in there, and I just repurposed it and made a vase, to be honest. Not big enough to make a lampshade, I don't think. Well, maybe. But yeah, that's just what I did, and it's what anyone can do. So yeah, that was that. And that's pretty much it, to be honest. I feel like there should be more, but I can't think of anything. So yeah, I'll perhaps make another video specifically for the colour changing stuff, and I'll be a little better prepared for it, and you can sort of see the colours it goes through and whatnot. But anyway, it does print absolutely terrific. And again, that's the 3D Printz PLA, as all of it is. I did buy some. I got some blue as well to use once the yellow runs out, which it's not too far away now. I've been sick of seeing yellow, to be fair. So yeah, that's a bulk of it. Anyway, thanks. Any questions? Feel free to ask in the comments. I'll try and answer as best I can. Yeah. Cheers again. Bye, guys.